Wait, you have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV.
Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody! Welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, and we made it through February, everybody. God damn it! We did it! For those of you where February isn't hell month, even in the least hellish of years, February is the toughest winter month here in New England, so I am glad we made it through. We may have a snowstorm or two here in March, but it's usually not as bad. My guest this week and I discussed this at the beginning of the show here, which we recorded last week, which is why she mentions Texas. And for all my Texas friends, I checked in on as many of you as I could. I think everyone's okay. It's the world is broken. I'm very sorry. I'm glad everyone is all right, and hopefully we're coming out the other side of it. Speaking of the other side of it, things are looking up-ish. I hope that we can all sort of feel a little bit better by this summer. I'm shooting for my birthday, so end of June this year. I'll be 41. And hopefully there'll be some celebratory thing. Also, maybe a few ideas. The gears in my brain are moving a little bit about possibly doing. Well, I won't ruin it because then I may not do it. But hopefully I'll be doing some stuff that you can enjoy. Speaking of enjoying, you will enjoy this week's episode very much. My guest is Abbi Crutchfield, who is incredibly funny. She's been on TV a number of times. She used to host People Magazine's daily show. She has a talk show on Hulu, which I highly recommend. It's called Up Early Tonight. Definitely watch that. She's great. Love talking to her, and we had a nice little chat here. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Abbi Crutchfield.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Abbi Crutchfield, how are you?
Hi, Ken. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. Did you guys you got hit with snow this week, didn't you?
We had a bit of snow, yes. Obviously nothing like what they're experiencing in the South, but I guess we're getting the runoff of that storm. So it's just nonstop flakes. They're super wet. They turn into slush.
Nonstop flakes sounds more like Los Angeles.
Really? They're getting that right now?
No, just the people.
Yeah. Oh, I walked into that one.
Boom! We're a comedy team here. Did you grow up in Illinois or Indiana?
Very close. Indiana,
okay,
yes.
Yeah. I thought I remembered that.
You give off Hooser vibes. But you're not from the Midwest, huh?
No, I'm not at all.
You're just so warm and friendly. I don't know.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm born and raised here in Boston, and I haven't tried to fight you yet. So that's probably why you were like, "Oh, you must be from the Midwest."
There's no beer bottles around for you to break.
That's
against
true.
a chair.
I'm not,
and
active.
you don't have a really hard accent either.
I had to really rid myself of it.
Oh, really?
It's difficult, yeah. I always joke on stage that it's because I wanted people to listen to me without thinking I was there to collect a debt. But
what does this guy want from us?
Yeah, how much do I owe? Yeah, but for some reason, it just drove me insane. And I had this weird thing in like my late teens where I was like, I don't like people knowing where I'm from without me telling them.
Right. You want a little mystery to yourself.
Yeah, because that's information that, you want to provide on your own time.
I guess if there's anything that I've worked on from where I come from, I never really used G's at the end of my gerunds. So I would drop the G's. It'd be like, I'm going. And I still do that at home very comfortably, but I'd make the extra effort to add a G at the end of words when I'm on the air.
Yeah, it's the things that I had the most difficulty with were not the usual Boston accent stuff like the R's. There's like weird vowel sounds that people don't always get, like if you would say like if you're going to say cloth, you would say cloth.
Cloth.
But not quite as New Yorky. And then
you got to let it swim in your mouth.
That's right, cloth. And then there's a weird Irish thing that they do at the end of words that end with a T. So instead of saying 8, I would say 8.
Oh,
it's like a weird...
What's happening in there?
Yeah, it's a very weird, like 8. It's a very weird straight. Yeah, it's really weird. And no one ever does those when they do a Boston accent. So people don't recognize them as such. I don't think I've ever been to Indiana.
We have the Indianapolis 500.
Okay.
The Colts are located there, and a handful of years ago we had the Lucas Oil Stadium, but that still feels new to me because it was brought up after I moved away.
I have been to Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I went to a horror convention there.
Ooh, fun.
There was a lot of dentists, I remember.
People were dressed as dentists.
No, just a lot of driving around, a lot of dental buildings.
Right. Come get your teeth cleaned here.
It
That's
was
funny.
Unusual amount. And then there was a cool...
Indiana, the teeth cleaning state.
Yes. The fluoride state. There was a cool, like, old zoo that seemed abandoned but wasn't.
I'm not sure it's abandoned. It just, I don't know that it had received too many updates. Maybe. I mean, I went there maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and it looked all right. It looked pretty fresh, but it's been around since I was little, so. It
was not quite post-apocalyptic, but,
it looked like it had seen better days.
Yeah. Although that's probably true because it was like a car manufacturing city, right?
Well, Detroit in Michigan is. Maybe Indiana had that going on. I really don't remember. I didn't bother learning the history of my surroundings as a child.
You didn't work in a factory like everyone else?
I just wasn't that into it.
Yeah.
I was more into Garfield and Friends, I think, at the time.
Fair enough. Were you the kind of person who was like, I'm getting out of here as soon as I possibly can?
Well, once I decided what I was excited about, which is entertainment, and then I assessed the area of like what ceilings can I hit here, I decided, okay, I should probably move to a city where that actually happens as a business. So it wasn't like I hate these people, but I do think I had trouble feeling like I fit in. And maybe that's because of the entertainment aspect. It's like when you have a skill set and you want to be able to use it and you can't, it's kind of like it makes you feel weird.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for those of us, because we're roughly of similar age, but for those of us who didn't grow up in New York or LA or even Chicago, and we're watching TV, that stuff feels a billion miles away.
Yes, indeed. It really did. I had this similar experience when I would study Italy in textbooks, and then I actually got to study abroad and see these ancient buildings up close. And that's the same feeling you get when you see Times Square in New York for the first time. It's just, it towers above you. Your eyes get very big. You're like, it's real.
Why did you pick New York versus Los Angeles?
Well, I had a plan.
We all have a plan.
Oh, my plan was very detailed. I was going to babysit for Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. And because I thought nannies always have the inside track. And it was nothing sordid. It was just simply, I will ingratiate myself to the cream of the crop. And that way I will bypass all these horrific auditions and just get a producer credit immediately. Okay. So then they split up and then the whole thing fell apart. But I was performing stand-up at the local open mic and running into a lot of professional comedians and deciding I liked comedy better than acting because I had done local commercials at that point and a couple of, I don't know if you could call them independent films. Student films / independent films, just very, very low budget. Guy off the street wants to make a movie and I show up and I want to act in it.
What kind of local commercials?
The local commercials were for H.H. Gregg, which is an appliance store.
Okay. Do you remember your lines?
State Farm Auto Insurance. I remember for State Farm, I had trouble saying insurance. I would just say insurance. And they kept saying, put the emphasis on sure. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Action, insurance. I don't know why. It gets in your head.
Yeah.
So anyway, I never saw any of my local commercials that I shot there. Maybe I had a few more besides that. But I definitely, I don't know, this the whole experience, even that feeling super pressure during a commercial shoot when you have one line. I was just like, this is for the birds. Acting's hard.
Right.
But comedy was fun. So I just kept doing stand-up. And then I moved to New York because that's where a lot of the stand-up said. They said, go to a town where you get more stage time.
Yeah, it's... Sorry, my mic has fallen on me here. I have a flaccid mic. Let me just adjust this. The funny thing is it's like New York is where you go if you want to do stand-up. Do stand-up and not do stand-up so that you can get noticed to do something else. And
right.
Yeah.
That you're exactly right, except in New York, you can get handpicked from your stand-up set to audition for television shows.
Right.
So there is that, but also the very fact that, and this is pre-pandemic New York, obviously, which is what it was, forever before this past year. There were so many ways to get to shows so much easier. So in LA, I'm sure there are shows happening every night, but you're only going to do one or two, maybe if they're close in the same area. And it's just not even that. It's not even practical to try to do that many sets a week in LA. So it makes more sense to use your commute money to audition because that's what ends up as real work.
The cynic in me always says that New York is like that because everyone's like way past the age when they should have roommates, but has roommates and they hate their apartment. So
They gotta
like,
get out.
I gotta get out and do as many shows as possible. Whereas in LA, you're like, it's not too bad.
Yeah. I felt pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast where we were giving advice to a caller who was looking for work, and he was an out of work lawyer. And I was just like, just do stand up. I mean, skip the middleman, because most of the people I met, on the scene were like, I used to be a doctor. I used to be a lawyer. And I'm like, it's one of those great careers, I guess, or art forms that you can do at any time in your life.
I threw away my parents' money in college. Or I think like Dimitri Martin was a lawyer. I think he worked at like a big law firm too.
Yeah, I wasn't on track to be a stand-up. I was studying to be, I don't know, I call it a diplomat, but I was just studying foreign relations at Georgetown.
Really?
So I felt like I was going to be some kind of dignitary and work for the government, and then it didn't work out.
Do you speak more than one language?
Yes, my fluency is dropping daily, but I speak French and Italian.
Oh, wow.
And then I understand a lot of Spanish and try to communicate. In New York City, it's almost like you don't think you speak Spanish, and then if someone asks you directions, you start giving them.
Yeah. I would get asked directions in Spanish for some weird reason as well. Like even in Boston, although every place I go, inevitably someone will pull over and ask me for directions.
I'm telling you, you give off that vibe, friendly dude.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. So when I asked you to do the show, I asked you what year you wanted, and you had sort of a range where you wanted sort of 86 to 89.
Specifically, I wanted seasons because the show that I love is Murder, She Wrote, and season 3, I can't remember which season, if it was 3 or 6 that the show was nominated for Emmys, but it just really picked up and it got super creative. So I wanted either season 3 or season 6. I am fascinated by Angela Lansbury's career, including this chunk of time that she spent doing this murder mystery show. Yeah,
because she was like an ingenue in Hollywood and British movies when she was younger. And then that was like phase 1. And then we had phase 2, which is like the bed knobs and broomsticks years.
Yeah, I don't even know phase 1, honestly. I'll see pictures every now and then of her, but it's like Rue McClanahan.
Yeah.
What did she do before she was Blanche? It's hard to know, you know, but then you see her and you're like, oh yeah, you worked your butt off forever.
You were in this world for decades before anyone was like, which is weird because they're sort of the exceptions to the rule in that it's usually, sadly for women, it's like that you're 40, goodbye. And then
Yeah. Well, yeah, it just depends, how you're originally, it seems like, here's the impression I get, because I'm not an expert. It seems like whatever you come on the scene as, that's what people want you to stay, or that's where you get traction. So it's this combination of demand and supply. Like you want to keep supplying that because that's what people keep asking for. And you're reticent to just kind of reinvent yourself because that doesn't make money.
Right.
So, and you also like being seen that way. It's probably pretty edifying in your own personal self-image of like, yeah, I'm the vixen.
I'm the young hot lady.
But if you don't make it, if your big break does not come at that era and it comes instead, after you're pretty seasoned, then you get locked into being, 50 for the rest of your life. And that's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, it worked for Wilford Brimley.
Exactly.
But people that age normally. So this issue, interestingly, before we get to the Murder, She Wrote, on the cover, the big cover story is the 10 most attractive men on television.
Ooh.
Which, looking at it, I don't know if I totally agree. Like they got Robert Wagner on here and as number 3, and like
I have mixed emotions about Robert Wagner. Obviously,
he is a murderer. But I said it, you didn't. But like especially in this picture, he just looks like a real estate agent. Like
I'm on the cover here. I see Tom Selleck as Magnum PI, Don Johnson, and Pierce Brosnan. But where's Robert?
So if you go, it's about 2 or 3 pages in. Yeah. So
okay. So is he wearing a white coat here?
He's wearing a brown, like a navy suit.
Where I see Spencer. There he is. Yeah. Golly.
It's so
he had those beautiful blue eyes. Still does. He's not dead yet.
No, but he doesn't. I mean, he's given off real, I own this real estate company vibes.
Oh, yes.
Not
confidence. There's a halo of light around his head. He has pure game show hair. He was prime for game shows. If it wasn't beneath him, I bet he should have done them.
Yeah. And so it's not like the kind of person you'd be like, stop you in your tracks. Like, that is a handsome man. Like Don Johnson, say.
He was distinguished. I think, I don't want to disagree with you on your own podcast, but.
No, it's fine.
I could see, especially since people, he got in people's brains when he was in his 20s and
True.
he was smoldering. So yeah, here he's giving me dad/grandpa, but
Right.
but I'm younger than his generation.
We have
so
different
I think
taste in men.
yeah,
Even though I'm a heterosexual
agree to
man.
disagree.
Yes. But point being, he's probably,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, probably close to 50 or older here, I'm guessing.
Right. And from a Tyra Banks' perspective of photos, he is definitely giving off friendly vibes, not sexy vibes, the way
Right.
Don Johnson is with his hands in his pockets.
Right.
What's his hands doing in there? You know what I mean?
Oh, we all know. And then like Bruce Willis on the opposite page, this is like as he's coming up. So this
He has the white dinner jacket, I see now.
And he's
Okay.
got the return of Bruno Smolder going on there.
He sure does. He's leaning against a palm tree for those who can't see it.
Yes. And that
Do you make these available for your listeners to then download? Or
Yes, I do.
Oh,
yeah.
good,
So
good, good.
I'll usually send some highlights with the episode. And then sort of meeting in the middle, we have John Forsythe, who's in a members only jacket, but is like smolder sexy / silver fox grandpa going on here.
Absolutely. And I am so disappointed in Dynasty as a series because I was so into it. As an adult, I tried to watch it because as a kid, when it came on TV, I barely understood the concepts. All I could see were women fighting in a fountain.
Right.
But as an adult, I was very intrigued by the first season, and they laid all these tracks for these people to just keep your attention. But he was just not likable in 2021.
No.
I mean, I would say he's Republican, right? He's
easily.
homophobic
Yeah.
against his own son. So he's estranged from his son. And then he's like madly in love with his wife. She happens to cheat on him because she's very hot. She's out of his league.
It happens.
But then he assaults her.
Yeah.
And and she forgives him almost immediately. And I'm just like, 1980s, who were you? Broadcasting this on TV, you had an opportunity, you know?
Although weirdly, like at the same time, Cagney and Lacey was on, and that had a whole multi-episode plot arc where I think it was I forget which one it was. I think it was Cagney. Her husband assaulted her, domestic abuse, but he was a cop as well.
Ugh.
So it had this whole plot about how the cops wouldn't do anything, and how it was really.
So it was speaking to the actual problems.
Yeah.
His was more dismissed. Like,
Yeah.
sorry that came over me, but I had to do it.
I
And
was
she's like,
consumed.
no, I'm sorry.
Yes, it was my fault.
So I cannot even look at him the same,
No.
which is so late. It's so late for me to be looking at him this way because I
Yes.
should have known already. But I love him as Charlie. He has such a soothing voice.
It's
John Forsythe.
weird.
And the name. Who wouldn't love the name John Forsythe?
That's true. I'm John.
He had a
Forsythe.
huge head of hair for an elderly man.
Jane Seymour, who I've had on the show, says in
Thank you.
his thing, to me, he's a very sexy older man. He has an air of being a real man, a man who would take very good care of you.
He's a man, I think, who's comfortable in his skin and knows who he is. He's imbued by power on the show Dynasty because of his wealth. So we're adding a lot there. But as far as actors go, he did not seem to be peer pressured into bodybuilding.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
That was not a requirement of men of his era. So I think, if you can pull off sexiness without having to meet all these standards, then good for you.
Which almost everyone in this list kind of falls into that category because we got Robert Urich, number 8, who is in good shape, but an older guy. I love Spencer for Hire.
I didn't know he was older. He seemed like a young dude to me.
He was a song and dance man like in the 70s, and Spencer for
wow.
Hire was his third series. He was in a show called Vegas before that, where he was like a detective in Vegas. And
Ooh, I want to watch that.
it's a really cool show, actually. It was shot actually in Vegas too. It was,
nice.
for years. And
Did they manage to not make it look depressing? Because Vegas
No.
is kind of
it looks depressing.
Not
which is
glamorous.
great. Not at all. This is like the crime riddled side of Vegas.
I want to
But-
see that.
The only thing everyone remembered was because you know if you have a detective show, you have to have like some cool quirk, like a weird old car, like whatever
Right.
it is. He could drive his car into his living room, like his house in Vegas. It was like this weird, and everyone was like living room car. So
Because
you
it
know,
was so warm out, so they always just perpetually open.
I guess it was like some modern, like wow, he's
Yeah.
a happening guy.
I got to see this.
It's a cool show. And then we have the weirdest one, and the less said about this man, the better probably. But number 7, they have Bill Cosby. That,
Right.
No, that's
We've already mentioned rape. I mean,
Yeah.
we might as well go there.
That's a no. But I mean, like, did anyone think Bill Cosby was sexy? No.
Well, this is a great question. I think he was. I think this is the trap for married people. It's very hard to and maybe I'm wrong because there are Hollywood A-listers that, want to kind of ooze their sensuality, but it seems like in 1950s and 60s Hollywood, it was like, don't talk about your personal life. Let us create this image of you and let people project their fantasies onto you. Now, I think that, I don't know, by the time 80s and especially television came along, you want it to be more concrete in the minds as a certain type. So even Claire Huxtable, who I look at her today, Felicia Rashad, she's smoking hot.
Oh,
she's
ridiculous.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I only as a kid saw her as a mom, and she was always so nurturing and or authoritative, which as a kid, that's not cool.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. I don't know how people were looking at him as a grown man. He was wealthy. He had a lovely smile.
Goofy,
he had very trendy sweaters.
Yeah.
So maybe people liked it.
Because, I don't know if you've ever seen the Bill Cosby show that he did in the early 70s with Quincy Jones, but it's actually a great show. It's like a single cam comedy show. He plays a gym teacher and shot on film, and he's in really good shape, and he's a young guy, and that I hate to recommend it to people because it's him, but it's actually a good show. But that I could see, but at this era, I'm like, ugh.
Right. Well, the I Spy Bill Cosby, where he wore a suit and was super young. Yeah. It's undeniable, swagger. But I don't know. I mean, Ken, we were kids. We can only see him as an old man at this point.
But then at the same time, after him is Pierce Brosnan, who's just a stunning man.
Let me see. I don't see him there. I see
he's on the cover.
Okay, go. Let me go back to the cover and see how stunning he was.
So I mean,
he's the Bond I always think of, but then that's just like me saying Indiana Jones Temple of Doom was my favorite Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Because that's the one I saw first and saw a million times. So Pierce is the Bond I was exposed to the most often as a kid. So he, to me, is the Bond.
Yeah, and
I don't know if other people would agree.
I would put him as the Bond. I was sort of Timothy Dalton-y, but Pierce Brosnan, no one's Timothy Dalton-y. But
you just never see. How many was he in? One, two?
2 or maybe 3, I think.
Okay, with all due respect to the talented Timothy Dalton, I never saw those Bonds. So it's so funny that you mentioned him. It's almost like when there's a foreign version of Everybody Loves Raymond, and it's like that's the star to you.
He's my Raymond.
I don't know Timothy Dalton.
Yeah. I think those were the Timothy Dalton ones were the first ones I saw in the theater. So I think I was like, oh, this is the big Bond.
And it's not that far difference from Pierce, honestly.
No.
They kept same complexion, same blue eyes, same dark hair.
I bet there were people who didn't even know there was a new guy. They were just
people who needed to change their prescription, but hadn't gotten around to it. Were like, this man is unbeatable.
But Pierce Brosnan was a young sort of, suave guy, and Remington Steele was a cool show.
It was, and his accent never seemed pompous. It just seemed smooth.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't know how many British guys can still do that. Maybe Harry Styles.
Maybe, yeah, but he's not Pierce Brosnan looking. Plus, that name is so I'm Pierce Brosnan.
Exactly, Pierce.
Yeah.
Was that his born name?
Yes.
I never Wikipedia'd him.
It was.
I named him Pierce.
Yes. And the people forget Remington Steele now, but the concept of that show was kind of fascinating in that it was, I think Connie Selica was his co-star, but she ran a detective agency and no one took her seriously. So she made up an owner of the agency and hired him. He was just some idiot actor.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Pretend to be this guy named Remington Steele.
And then what? Did he just get mixed up in her hijinks of solving crime?
Yeah.
He became good at it over time?
A little bit, but not even. It would basically be well, I want to talk to the man in charge. And he'd come out and be like, yes, I'll take this case. But then she did everything and he was an idiot. He was like a himbo.
That's hilarious.
It's such a cool concept. Yeah.
It's pretty ahead of its time, although it has to acknowledge the inequality of the era.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
That we're still experiencing. At least it didn't fantasize. At least it wasn't although I kind of wish, this is 2021 me talking, kind of wish they would have just let her be public about it. But they probably needed a love, will they, won't they?
Yeah.
Where they always, it's like moonlighting,
exactly.
This whole sexual tension thing.
Which, whenever they will in the show, instantly ruins every show. I can't think of a better show. I can't think of a show that either stayed the same or got better after they win.
Who's the Boss? The Nanny? Now that I think about it.
Cheers both times.
Didn't Cheers learn its lesson?
No,
All right.
it's never good.
That's so funny. Does Magnum ever settle down? Because I was only watching season 1 where he just kept dating everyone each episode.
I don't think he ever even has a love interest in more than one episode, unless maybe there's something going on with Higgins. But
he was determined to be Bond. No,
Yes.
he and Higgins are oil and water. It'll never happen, Ken.
Well, opposites attract. And Don Johnson's obviously number one because Don Johnson, like Miami Vice in '86, was everything.
Yes.
Everything.
I mean, propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah.
I keep spoiling all the fun of the 80s with my 2021 lens, but
No, I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
but you're absolutely right. I can easily transport myself back to that time when that really looked cool. I don't even know how you push up your sleeves on your blazer. Like these must have been custom made, very loose, soft blazers.
yeah. I mean,
Because if you tried to do that with your own stiff Sears number, it wouldn't work, people.
but remember that was the go-to look of stand-ups in the 90s?
You do see that a lot when you look at old footage.
And those guys would get those crappy jackets, but they would buy ones that were like 3 times too big so that they could roll up the sleeves instead of
the
like
secret.
the cool thing.
That's the secret. Well, see, here's my problem with Don Johnson as a kid. He and Kevin Costner were interchangeable to me.
Yeah.
But Kevin Costner was the movie star and Don Johnson was the TV star. I don't know if it was the complexion, the sandy brown hair, the 5 o'clock shadow, but something about them both was just like.
They're both objectively handsome men, but they have a thing about them that's kind of generic. Like they have a real generic, like, I'm a handsome actor. This is what we look like. So
I think it's very swagger. I think it's all in the attitude with those two for me.
I mean, also Don Johnson had a stellar music career.
Did he?
He actually started as a singer and he was like a lounge singer. So
cool.
That's how he got into acting. And then when he got Miami Vice, obviously he had a ton of juice. So he was like, I want to put out an album. And
Oh dear.
he put out an album called Heartbeat.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
The world's first video album.
Ooh.
In that every song on the
Like
album.
Beyonce.
Exactly. He was Beyonce before Beyonce. I mean, everybody said it.
Wow. Ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time.
Now I want to see a Miami Vice reboot with Beyonce in it. But so every song on the album had a video and it told the story. He was like this Vietnam photographer that it was ridiculous. But
Very, very involved.
yeah. And then before we get to the listings, there's an article in here that really hit me in the heart in a good way. And it's Saturday night and the only remedy is your first choice cassette. It's basically about renting a video and that really anxious moment on the weekend when you would hope that like the new release was in.
Right.
Which is a thing that only happened for like a 20-year period tops.
Yeah.
And other people just wouldn't understand. And if we described that to someone younger than us, it would sound ridiculous.
Well, I kind of feel the same. Yes, absolutely right. I think that exists in new releases of other things now. Like if this is so niche, but if there's a new nail polish, they're sending limited batches to drugstores. And so I have to scour certain drugstores and certain times of day just to find it. I don't know if anyone else is that obsessive. And also, probably nail polish is going to go the way of the dinosaur as well, just because of technology.
Well, they can't digitize nail polish.
You were going to digitize. I've seen like you stick your hand in a box and you pull your hand out and there's nails, but there's also like decals. Anyway, back to what you're saying. I bet you in that era at Blockbuster, you probably knew you had to go straight there after work if you wanted to get a new release, because I never, ever got them. We would always go Saturday night right before we wanted to watch a movie or before we ordered the pizza, and there'd be nothing there.
Yeah. You'd end up getting like either some old movie that you'd seen a million times or like a super straight to video knockoff of the movie you wanted to see.
Oh my.
It's always the best. They'd be like, oh, this is good enough. It's fine.
Yeah, I would always just catch up on my 80s movies. Like, do you remember that one with Tony Danza and he has a
She's
daughter?
Out of Control.
She's Out of Control.
Yep.
Like that one was always available.
With Amy Dolan's, Mickey Dolan's daughter is the main girl in that.
Small world.
Yeah, she's Out of Control. There was also always a weird, and this again maybe a Boston thing, a weird tension where there would be a really angry, probably divorced dad just setting up shop next to the return bin Because, like, he only gets those kids 2 days.
Oh,
He's going to
man.
get fucking Home Alone for them. And when that comes through the thing, he's going to lay claim.
That's right.
Yeah.
He's got a job to do. I didn't pay attention to too many people in the store except for the creepy guys that would go to the back.
Yes. Yes.
There was the top row, which I don't know how it ever seeped out of the back room, but the top row was pretty blue.
Yep.
And then there would be the guys that would sneak into the back all silent. And I
Saloon
just couldn't
doors?
take my eyes off of them.
We had, it was, none of our stores had like the saloon doors or back room. And I don't know if this was like a law here because we had weird blue laws. So all the video stores would have a giant binder or like several binders with the boxes for the dirty movies in them. So they would have to like flip through these binders and then write down like a number and bring it up to the front.
Golly.
The best part of that was you could, and it would be like some kid's dad you knew, which was embarrassing, but you could tell when the clerk wanted to mess with people because they'd be like, "Do we have butts up 7? I think it's the wrong number." And everyone would be like, "Oh my God, this poor," like you would just feel bad for everybody. Yeah.
Look, I don't want to give those guys too much credit, but now it's just at your fingertips, and they were doing the work. Okay,
They
they were
earned
really going for it.
They took a risk. They knew what they'd have to put up with. And they went for it anyway. And, you know, good for them. Good for them.
You know what? They should have just been allowed to go after all the kids were gone. Like the kids coming in before pizza time.
Like Adult
shouldn't have had to
Swim?
see those men.
It's like Adult Swim for the video store. The bell goes off and then all the kids get out. They got
Kids
15
leave,
minutes.
creepy dudes come on in.
Yeah. Creepy dude, 15 minutes to get what you want and get out of here. So let's dive in here. So Saturday night, this is, the date is, where am I here? April 19th, 1986.
It was springtime.
What are you watching?
You know, I didn't pick ahead of time.
That's cool.
So why don't we start and I will just agree with you. So am I looking at prime time or am I
Yes,
looking
prime
at the
time.
very end?
Just 8 o'clock here on the Saturday night. Did you have siblings or are you an only child?
I have a sibling. I've got a sister my age, and I have 2 half brothers that are older than me. But the one in the house with me was my sister, who's just about a year older. So we did everything together.
So was she in charge of choices because she was just a little bit older, or did you have to negotiate?
Great question. I think we were just like-minded in that era. I mean, I would always default to her, but I don't remember watching something I didn't want to watch because of her. It was more like, we are watching the kids' movies. So right now my eye gravitates to Respringing the Trap with Haley Mills.
Yes.
We were huge Parent Trap fans. And I am a sucker for a reunion. Brady Bunch reunion, like anything where it's like, where are they now? I love it. So I would certainly be watching that. Who is the perfect child? She looks like Small Wonder. Oh, it is Small Wonder.
Yes. Yeah. That's
She looks so different there. Tiffany Brissett as a youngster named Vicky. I don't remember her having a ponytail. Why does she look like Dorothy from Wizard of Oz here?
because she, in the first season, they gave her that ponytail for some weird reason.
And then every time after she had longer hair.
Yeah. She gave up acting, became a licensed therapist.
That's pretty cool.
Probably because of all the children who were totally traumatized by that show.
Yeah, probably because of rampant abuse and absolutely no parental concern.
Yep.
Something like that. Anybody who, you know how you used to hear it maybe 10 years ago before the Me Too movement, you would hear they quit acting and you're like, why would they ever give that up? And then you just find out like, oh, everybody has gone through this. Anyone who still acted is, having a real hard time. So yeah, they tried to have life happen.
Oh, every former kid actor I know has just horror stories. And I'm actually surprised how many have like turned into somewhat normal adults, because a lot of them I know, they're the weirdest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, humans are resilient, Ken. All right, let me just say, good for them, and they didn't deserve that. Just for the record, if you have a kid that's going through that, they don't deserve it.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean no one's protected in the industry. But it was highly unregulated, very Wild West, and we have all the receipts. And so is comedy. Like it's time we all open our eyes to that. In entertainment, there's a lot of that's going wrong. So I thought I was looking at Joan Collins, but that's not her on the Garfield page.
No, that is, who is that? So this is the return of Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer they're talking about here. And it's Dawn Stroud and Lindsay Bloom.
Yeah, I would not have watched that.
No.
Looks like I would have hit up that Garfield show for sure.
This is Garfield in Paradise, which I have no recollection of, and I'm a Garfield fan.
Same here. Very strange. Some things just don't leave the vault yet, I guess. Maybe Jim, what's his name? Jim that does Garfield?
Jim, Oh my God, Jim Davis. Jim Davis.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Jim Davis is like pulling a Walt Disney there and not letting everything go.
Yeah, well, you can have a limited
if he's
edition.
the one with the rights.
There's somebody whose nail polish is Garfield in Paradise that they're just hunting for nonstop. They show up.
Yeah. So anyway, I was picking things as I would as a kid, and I could still tell you, like, I don't want to see any romance in the 80s because I don't think they treated it well. I don't like how, like, the machismo men and the toxic masculinity and the women defaulting. And one thing I am fascinated by when I watch these romances is the makeup and, you know, what was deemed attractive. That's always pretty cool.
Did you get that vibe then when you were watching it growing up that, like, this is a little weird, or is it more a hindsight thing?
I just internalized it. I found an old journal entry from grade school that said, "I hope I grow up and get married someday, but I don't want to marry a murderer." Like, there was that much wife murder on TV.
Yeah, there really was.
And that was mostly probably Lifetime originals that I was noticing. But even in the news, and it's just kind of like, it's not even an inaccurate depiction of, you know, the domestic violence numbers, but just that, like, saying that as a casual, I just hope I don't marry someone that murders me.
It's kind of a given, but you wanted to put it down in black and white there.
I needed a record of it.
Yeah.
And I see a woman here who I think I noticed from a Murder, She Wrote episode. Am I missing some listings? Because I don't see Murder, She Wrote on here. It was on, wasn't it?
It'll be on, yeah. So if you scroll past the movies into the black and white section, which starts around page 31.
Wow, there's endless options.
Yeah, I think Murder, She Wrote was on Sunday nights, if I'm remembering correctly.
Interesting.
And Sunday starts on page, Sunday night would be page like 45. Or 46.
Okay, well, I will spare your listeners from me reading now. I should have done my homework. But
quite all
I
right.
just want to say there's a lot of options here. So how exciting would it be to get that in your hands? Your hot little hands. You're like, I got the TV guide. What are we going to watch? I would circle it.
You guys got the TV guide. You didn't use the newspaper one.
No, we didn't do either. Honestly, we TV watching was like rent a video. I remember we rented a lot of Ernest Goes To, get a pizza on Saturday, and then the daily ingestion of TV was, you know, obviously outside of school hours. So right when I got home, I would do some cartoons,
DuckTales.
and then as I got older, it would become talk shows like Ricky Lake.
Yep.
Jenny Jones. And then my mom was not a TV head. She watched the stock market every now and then, wherever that showed up
or
on.
whatever it was.
Yeah. Something with a ticker tape that I had no interest in.
Oh, that's
was
like
always on.
child poison. Like that, you could punish children by telling them they had to watch the stock market. It would just be like,
But she never look for she would say that. She would say, look for the letters, you know, and then she'd tell me like the letter combo to look for. And when it scrolled by the screen, we would tell her like if it went up or down.
yeah.
But
Was there anything she forbid? Like, was there anything you weren't allowed to watch?
she just wouldn't watch soap operas. She didn't have time for them. She was working during the day anyway. That's probably when they came on. I, in the summertime, would be exposed to a lot of like daytime TV, game shows, a ton of game shows, Brady Bunch, you know, like a ton of family programming that may have aired in prime time at once upon a time, but then was always in the day. And so I feel like I watched a lot of TV, but it wasn't scheduled TV. It was just whatever came on. And it was all the commercials, you know, like mostly the commercials were TV to me, which I think is a psychology thing for kids. It's like they can't tell the difference. And I certainly could not.
Are there favorites that still stick in your mind, or like, because I have so many jingles and useless things in there from commercials that are of no use.
Yeah. Well, there's like the ones I would get excited to see are Trix commercials because they're like a mini cartoon.
Yeah.
They have a whole story arc in them.
He's going to get him this time. Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And even if you didn't see him get them, they would be marketing a new spin on Trix. It was like, now we have a new shape. Now we have yogurt. Now we have this. So it was always something to look forward to.
Do you remember when they were like, we're going to let him have them this time?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
They promoted it. It felt like for like 2 years. They were like, it's happening. Be here on it was probably a week, but they were like, be here on this day. He's finally going to have them.
Yeah.
It was, I guess it was a will they, won't they?
Did he have them?
He did. And he was like, and it was so anticlimactic.
Anticlimactic. Yeah. I remember, kind of plotting on the playground around these TV commercials. So yeah, that sounds like something we would have been like, can you believe he's going to have them? Do you think they'll let him have them?
What's he going to do?
Same for M&Ms. When there was a time in the 90s, you could vote on what the next M&M color would be. And I remember dialing the phone number and voting constantly.
Did you ever enter contests as a kid? I was like a big, like the Captain Crunch contest or like anything I would write for and enter every contest.
Oh man, I should have. No, I did enter a contest, but it was one where if you colored in a picture of the Dairy Queen ice cream guy, he was some kind of mascot at an ice cream head, kind of like the guy from Pete and Pete. If you colored that in and they liked the way you colored it, you could get free tickets to a movie. So I did. And then at that movie, they handed out the picture again. They're like, color this one, guys. And if we select you, you'll get tickets again. And I won again. And so I started thinking like, oh, okay, so they'll just pick anybody. They just want you to watch these movies.
What movie was it you remember?
One was The Secret Garden, which I love.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't remember the second one. Oh, Free Willy. I was like, but after Free Willy, I was just like, okay, I don't really want to fill this one out.
I remember as a kid, we were in my mom would always dump me at the mall or like Child World to just wander around so she could go gamble. And I was like wandering around the mall aimlessly once. I was probably 12.
She's like, beat it, kid. You're bad luck.
She's like, I'll be here in 2 hours. And they were doing test screenings of the movie Milk Money.
Oh, yes.
And
was that Demi Moore with long blonde hair?
No, that's the butcher's wife.
Okay.
Milk
Money?
Milk Money was
Melanie
Griffith, and the dad was Ed Harris. And this kid's dad is a widower. This is post Pretty Woman, by the way, which will make sense in a moment. So this kid decides he's going to save up his milk money to buy his father a prostitute.
Wow.
Who's Melanie
golly.
Griffith. And
how did that get off the
They
ground?
fall in love.
Wholesome.
Sorry to ruin the ending for you. But I remember as a kid, they like after the movie, we had to sit with a guy with a clipboard and he asked us all these questions. And I was like, this is stupid. He's like, what? I'm like,
you were a kid.
I'm like, first of all, it's inappropriate. And then the guy was like, okay. And
First of all, how dare you?
Yes. And then after about halfway through the thing, I noticed the guy just stopped even writing down my answer.
You were so opinionated.
Yeah. He's like, this isn't getting through. It's fine.
Oh, well, they still made it. I
did.
mean,
And it came
that's
out-
funny that's how they test audiences.
I don't know. It was the only time I've ever seen that happen. And I've never seen the movie other than that. So I don't know if they changed anything or if it was like a different, and I don't ever want to. Murder, She Wrote This Night is a repeat, but it's a Tom Bosley one.
Oh, love him.
So this is
Sheriff Amos Tupper.
Yep. This is Jessica witnesses what may be murder of a woman on a boat in the lake. Or did the woman simply jump overboard?
I love that one.
Did you watch this when it was on, or is this something you've rediscovered as an adult?
I only had a recollection of one specific episode watching it on my mom's bed. I mean, I knew that it came on because I would watch like Dynasty and or Dallas Falcon Crest. Like some of these like nighttime soaps were on. I don't remember my mom sitting next to me watching them. I just remember sitting on the end of her bed watching them on her TV in her room. So she would allow it. Like she was very good at putting up boundaries of you are not allowed to have this to eat and you're not allowed to watch this. But that one she thought was fine. She's like, oh, that's cheesy crap. Sure, come on. Yeah. But I took it very seriously because it was all grown-ups and I sat and tried to absorb it. And the creepy thing about Murder, She Wrote was when the killer would recount what really happened, there'd be these wavy lines that would flow back into the reenactment. And that always captivated me. Like, oh, I'm being transported to another world. Now I'm with the crime. That one I don't remember watching in the day. I just remember one in particular. And every time I come across it when I rewatch the series now, and I have rewatched the series multiple times, I'm like, oh man, this takes me back to when I was little and saw this. But now it has context. It's like, oh, this is a murder happening.
Yeah, like this person's dead. Because I always try to get to what the difference was between all the murder shows we had growing up, which seemed wholesome, and them sort of now through the 90s and now. And I don't know if you'll agree with this, but the difference I've landed on is autopsies. They never did autopsy. Like they were never, it was always just like
no forensics.
Oh, yeah, no forensics. And once that came in, they got way more grim.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Like, what were they doing? I think they were just referencing an autopsy. Like, oh, the autopsy showed he had poison in his system. Right. You know, like they'll just say it, but you won't see it in the morgue.
Because even like Quincy, he was a medical examiner who did autopsies, and we still didn't see him.
We never saw
like, yeah, no, I checked it out. Trust me. It was.
Take my word for it.
Yeah, I feel like every murder was solved by how somebody fell.
Yeah, everything.
fell on his
Really, I
side.
never saw Quincy. I should probably get into that.
Yeah.
I was into Matlock, Diagnosis Murder for some reason. I think Cosby had one I tried to watch for a while.
Father Dowling?
Father Dowling with the nun lady. I watched it, but I didn't grasp it. Like they probably spent too much time being cute and funny and not enough time being scary and creepy.
Yeah.
But Murder, She Wrote was always grounded in such intense reality. And it had some moments of levity where you could relax, but then it would go right back into
She was never a clown. Like, I feel like a lot of those, like in the Columbo mode, they would make the sort of investigator kind of bumbling and like the comedy character.
Right, like Monk. Mhm.
Yeah. Whereas
Very
Influence
quirky.
never was.
Right. Although I just found out recently the person who created Murder, She Wrote also created Columbo, which makes sense because I think aesthetically I like them both. Like both of those show tremendous respect to the person solving the crime.
Right. Which is unusual.
Although, yeah.
For those things. And again, I think if I'm remembering correctly, I just did a Columbo there inadvertently.
Sorry to bother you, Abbi.
We as the viewer always knew who did it usually. Like it would show who did it and then we were watching kind of just waiting for them to know.
It was innovative because you had to find out if they were going to get caught. You kind of wanted them to get caught, but all throughout the episode on Columbo, you see the crime committed and you see them slip through everybody's fingers. So it's only to the very last minute that he goes, aha, this is how you've trapped yourself, which is, I think, a beautiful reinvention of the format. You know, instead of like a whodunit, here are our clues, here's the red herring. Okay, and here's like that linchpin evidence. This was just like, I mean, there's still mystery. There's still the audience doesn't know because he has to stumble upon the evidence that will nail the person. But yeah, it's the very first Columbo episode I saw. I was a young adult and I was like you're watching them kill it. There's no mystery. I know who the killer is. And then you have to. Then what you start to enjoy is the dynamic between Columbo and the killer.
Which are
they friends? Do they hate each other?
Do you think Columbo knew all along? Like I feel like those are more rewatchable because for that very reason, it doesn't matter who did it. You're not just waiting to know. It's the how, not the what.
Right. And when you get into a series that goes on multiple seasons, there are certain things to enjoy. So, for example, in Murder, She Wrote, in the beginning, it's more like she is like, I don't know anything. I'm just an author. I just happen to observe this. So, hey, police, you should do this. So then it becomes like, do the police listen to her or do the police ignore her? But usually she has a vested interest in solving the crime. Like one of her family members is implicated or the person who is in the hot seat is definitely someone she knows is innocent. And so she just, somehow for that many seasons, something like 11 seasons, they give her a reason to be fully invested in helping solve this crime, even though it is not her job at all. And so like season by season, she just gets better at it and better at it. And they stop this pretense of like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing, but hey, you might want to do this. And she just takes it upon herself. Sometimes she becomes friends with the cops and they're like, hey, help me out. You're the one with the skills.
A smart lady. And she, oddly, never a suspect. I don't know. Like
she knows how to frame everybody better than anyone else. Okay.
And so many dead people, like you'd think there'd be at least one episode where like they're like some cops like, everyone gets murdered and you're there.
There actually is. Do you know the actor Patrick McGoohan?
Yes.
Is that his name?
I love Patrick McGoohan.
He's great, isn't he? He's in a lot of Columbos. Okay, so he plays this British Columbia lawyer, barrister. I forget what term they use. And he puts her on the hot seat as a witness and he wants her, she's not helping his, she's originally there to help him prove a case against somebody, but then she decides, I don't like who you're trying to prove the case against. That's my friend. And so he tries to get her to leave and she won't leave because she has to solve the case. So he gets her on the stand and he tries to assassinate her character. And so he's like, and he points out all the times that she was involved in crimes. And then he's like, excuse me, are you expecting me to believe that you weren't involved in these things? So I feel like that's the writers finally kind of attacking the critics. Yeah, acknowledging that we get it.
I need to see that now. I love Patrick
it's pretty
McGoohan.
Good.
Patrick, actually, to bring it back to where we first started from, Patrick McGoohan was the first actor they asked to play James Bond.
Wow.
And he turned it down.
He would have been a very sophisticated Bond.
He was in a show called Secret Agent Man in the 60s.
Great song.
And he hated the show, hated being on it. So he quit the show, and then he wrote and starred in his own sequel series of that show called The Prisoner. That's a metaphor for why he quit that show.
Oh, wow.
And it's insane.
Sounds very sophisticated. Not sophisticated, but what is it where you not arrogant, but you're a little bit like confident too much.
Yeah, self-aggrandizing.
He sounds a little Orson Wellesian to me.
Yes, he totally is. And I always say nobody went from 0 to really angry in 2 seconds better than Patrick McGoohan. He answers
drawing
all
from a
questions
real
by
place.
yelling. Yeah, like every scene in The Prisoner, they're like they're basically the whole premise of the show is he wakes up on this island. Everyone has a number and not a name. He's called number 6, and they're like asking him why he quit. And you never meet number 1 and the person's number 2. And they're always like, who does number 1 work for? And he's always like, I'm not a number. Like he just starts yelling.
That sounds
all
just
the
like
time.
him.
Yeah. So yeah, he famously turned down being James Bond, which is kind of amazing.
Wow. You know who he reminds me of, if we could do a modern day equivalent, even though this man is not known for being, I don't think too confident or cocky. He reminds me of Paul Bettany, maybe because I've been watching WandaVision, but they had that same smooth essence.
Yeah, with an underlying rage. You know what I mean? Like you could just at any time there could be this seething volcano of anger that's being just smoothed over by suaveness. The Prisoner
Well said.
I highly recommend The Prisoner if you're looking for stuff to watch. It's very weird.
Okay.
I do want to mention, weirdly, up against this Murder, She Wrote, the Disney Sunday movie. John Astin is in this episode of Murder, She Wrote, who was Gomez Addams and is Sean Astin's dad. He's also in, at the same time, on a different network, he is in the Disney Sunday movie Mr. Boogedy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Luke made me watch. My husband, Luke Thayer, who's a comedian, just for my viewers, he's, look into his stuff too. My viewers, your listeners.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Mr. Boogedy is something I was subjected to this past Halloween, and I did not enjoy it.
No.
I don't think I would have liked it as a kid. It just is insults your all levels of intelligence, that film.
I think it was a boy thing. Like he and I are probably the same age, and like everyone we knew was obsessed with that movie.
Yeah, I heard about it all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
But when I finally watched it, I was like, this is Mr. Boogedy?
I think it was because a lot of kids weren't allowed to watch horror movies. I certainly was because my parents were bad. But, they couldn't see actual horror movies. So this was like the closest thing most kids got to see to like Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'll accept it, I suppose. I mean, it certainly has the playful, I love mixing comedy and scariness. And I love, as a kid, I watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Like there's something where kids love to kind of learn about supernatural stuff in a safe environment. And that's what Mr. Boogedy provided. But it also is just like
stupid,
so empty to me. So empty.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think I would have had patience for it as a kid. But I love that how baller, what's Gomez's real name?
Oh, John Astin.
I love how baller John Astin is here because he's like, I don't care what channel you watch, you got to find John Astin.
It's Astin Sunday. Yeah, it's he was on he guest starred everything. He was on Night Court at this point playing Harry's dad. Like
very
he
cool.
was just everywhere.
Just everywhere.
Is there anything that you've revisited that you liked as a kid that either surprised you in that how good it was, or you were just like so sad at how much it didn't hold up?
I think we just discussed a Murder, She Wrote is rock solid, and Mr. Boogedy does not hold up, people. No, I think it's always interesting to watch something through the adult lens that you viewed as a kid because you're just going to see everything differently. And I always find it funny when people still see stuff through their kid lens, even as an adult. And that for me, that's Home Alone. Like I can't appreciate it outside of the kid lens. I mean, I did now that I have a child, I have a 3-year-old. I was really feeling for Catherine. I can't remember anyone's name right now.
O'Hara. Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara's character, when she stays at the airport, I cried today. As a kid, I didn't care. I was like, okay, back to the kid having fun, please.
Yeah, sure thing, Mom. Yeah.
Ugh. But no, watching that, I was like, wow, she really has got to get home to him. And that embodies like the actual spirit of a parent. Like that's exactly what parents feel like. They're like, I don't care what it takes. I'm not giving up. I got to get back to this kid. But everything else, like outsmarting the criminals and coming up with the toys and just like John Hughes just made such beautiful, okay, it was the art director, but whoever the props department was, that house was so realistic to me. I loved all of it.
Did you watch the episode of Movies That Made Us about that?
Yes, it was good.
So good, yeah.
It was really good to know, and I didn't like that knowing that it was all done in a studio. Like I didn't like seeing those.
Yeah,
yeah.
It was funny. I had sent Moses on, who played one of Kevin's sisters in that. She was on My So-Called Life as well. She was the girl that had a crush on Ricky, not knowing he was gay.
Oh yes, I have to revisit that. But I remember every episode of My So-Called Life.
But she was like, she watched the Home Alone episode, and she was like, I didn't know any of that.
Right, so much trivia.
Yeah, she's like, I was there every day, and I didn't.
But even though I watched it, I could still watch Home Alone later that Christmas and not think about how it was shot. You know, then the flooding and all that's contrived. It's just so well done. It's just it's so beautiful to watch.
You don't question the reality of it, even.
No, and I also was lower middle class / middle class. I haven't decided yet. I have to research what the economy was like back then. But I grew up thinking of Kevin McAllister's home as a palace.
Oh, yeah. No, he's loaded.
So I still get excited by that. Like, wow, they're feeding all these kids. They've got this fancy kitchen tile. I just love everything about it.
He's home alone in a mansion. Because you do have a kid, you got to go. I know. It won't take up your.
She
whole
just walked in. I don't know if you could hear her being like, "What you doing, Mommy?"
It's like you gotta go parent. But is there anything that you like, a comfort show or anything aside from Murder She Wrote that you've been watching in lockdown, or something that's just been your like chill out show?
It's definitely between Murder, She Wrote, Columbo, and Midsummer Murders, which I obviously have a type, but it's because they all get solved. It's like you're on the precipice of despair, and then boom, you're in safe hands.
The formula
that's my jam.
Yeah, so which I think is why people watch CSI and Homicide and stuff now, because even though it's more grim, you always know they're gonna figure it out.
Yes, I have been doing a lot of Shark Tank and SVU, but sometimes SVU is just too true crimey for me, especially if it reminds me too much of a real story, which they try to pull a little bit from the headlines.
It's a little bit gross.
And I'm just like, I just fast forward to the moments where Mariska Hargitay is being very comforting and soothing.
Is there anyone you've met because you've done a bunch of TV stuff and you've got to do a lot of really cool stuff. Is there anyone you've met that you used to watch on TV as a kid that you were just like totally starstruck by?
Well, the funny thing is I interviewed celebrities for People Magazine's online show People Now for a bit when I helped I didn't help create it.
I created People Magazine. It was
I invented People Magazine. Find the secrets out.
I'm People.
No, I was a part of the launch of the show, so at its inception. So we had a lot of celebs come through there, and that was a really interesting experience to meet them. Now, the context of meeting them was, at least it was in a professional setting, so it wasn't like I felt so dissatisfied, like, if like you're waiting for someone to sign your autograph book and they walk right past you, that's probably a letdown. So at least I did get to talk to these people, but you still don't get a feeling of knowing them. And it's early morning, so most people are kind of like, let me just do my thing and go, please. I'm sitting here, I've already been awake since 4 a.m. and I'm like, tell me, how many kids do you have? Yeah. And they're just like, where do I look? Where's the camera? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I've done this 25 times today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what day or time it is. I just got off a red eye.
Yeah, it's
so that was not as fun, but there are there's like little anecdotes or something.
But knowing that you were people. Like, I can't believe this is a real person and they're standing right here next to me.
Probably the most I couldn't believe. I can't believe. Is this real? I would really have to think, because it was like dozens and dozens of people. Yeah. And I was always like, wow, that's really cool to be right in front of these people. But Helen Hunt, it was really cool to see her in person. And she was, she was lovely. Everybody was lovely, by the way. Yeah. Everybody knows how to do their job, which is be interviewed. Yeah. So like if someone didn't interview well, it's you would have seen it go viral. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. But I remember like standouts were Kevin Nealon was super friendly. Rob Reiner was super friendly, like off stage. Jeremy Sisto, like people who would talk to you and hold court when they weren't on were super fun to be around. And that was really nice.
They were nicer than they needed to be. That's always when you're like, oh, that's really cool.
And I figure they've been doing it long enough. It's not a show. It's just like they're just comfortable in their own skin. Yeah. And they're just like, this is what I'm doing today.
Another day. Yeah, I recall I ran into you guys at the Amy Sedaris At Home with Amy Sedaris premiere a couple years ago. That night was one of my weird experiences because I was obsessed with House of Style on MTV as a kid growing up. So for some reason, Todd Oldham, who's one of Amy's good friends, I was like, oh my God, it's Todd Oldham.
I can't believe that was what blew you away and not Michael Stipe.
Yeah,
I was just like paralyzed by Michael Stipe.
I know. I used the men's room next to Michael Stipe.
Wow.
But I was like, that, whatever. That's normal. But
I didn't talk to him because it's like, what am I going to say?
Right.
Hello,
But, like,
I know who
Sarah
you
Jessica
are.
Parker was like, there were huge people there.
I didn't see SJP.
Oh yeah, she came in. She was
Very
all hanging
nice.
out. But I was like, Todd Oldham, you
Todd
don't
Oldham.
understand.
That's so cool.
So it's always
That's
a
really
weird
nice.
person that you never know who the hell it would be.
I mean, you're okay. Now I looked him up to remind myself. Yes, Todd Oldham. I watched him a lot as a kid.
Yep.
I think, and even Amy, Amy's there. That's really cool. And Michael Shannon was there.
Yes, he was.
Who is huge right now. It's kind of like, golly, he's hanging out. This is awesome. Like, it was a really fun night to just, you always like to see how tall people are.
He's
I don't know
very
why.
tall. Michael Shannon's very tall. Yeah, because most people are super tiny.
Yeah, they really are in the biz.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's so funny to actually talk like a fan because I was a bit jaded after doing the job of just being like, you don't really ever get to know these people. And it makes you feel so statusy, like I'm here and they don't look me in the eye, but truly, when you tap into like, that's neat. I never thought I would see them. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Like I always think that I try to be grateful for my wife's constantly like, you're such a jerk. Like, but like you've got to do all this cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like as a reminder, I'll be like, like, oh, we got to meet this person or do this. There's like other people, but like so many of the interactions that we've been able to have would be like someone's one story they have for like their whole life,
Well, yeah. And I have a friend who goes to conventions and she will talk about an actor who you haven't thought of, in decades from a random film that may have only gone straight to VHS. She adores them all. And she will tell me great detail of their personality, what they were like. And so she's the kind of person that, it's as if she's only met them once in her life. Like she only saw one celebrity ever. But she, she's constantly enamored and she will paint the most vivid picture. And so I can just tell her, I got to interview this person the other day. And she'll be like, tell me everything.
Yeah. Because it's easy to get jaded on that stuff. Like I would do Q&As at a lot of conventions. And, people go and they pay like $20 or $50 to meet someone and get a picture. And they're super happy to do it. And I'm always like, you're not getting paid to be there? You know what I mean? Or it's just like, but at the same time, like this is really cool, and we get to
It's it's like being too close to it sometimes,
Yeah, Too Close for Comfort, another great show.
I have so many shows to look up now that we've talked.
I know. I'd love to hear what you think of The Prisoner. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's been great talking to you. I've wanted to have you on for a while, and it's thank you, Lockdown.
It's my pleasure. We're having so much fun on Twitter, gabbing with each other and telling jokes and sharing jokes, that it's nice to finally have a convo. And speaking of TV shows, I host one called Up Early Tonight. It's a talk show by parents for parents, by moms for moms. And I'm a mom and I host it. It's super funny. It's got sketch, it's got panel, it's got monologue. So, and then really cool in-house band, one woman show, LaFrey Ski. So definitely check it out. Amina Imani, Hester Steinberg, and Ophira Eisenberg are our main panelists.
Ophira's been on every. I'm like, who do I know that's a mom that was on this show? Ophira has been on the show and is a friend. Yeah, she's been on a few times, right?
Yeah. So definitely check it out. If you like good TV, you'll love that show. Up Early Tonight on Hulu. Thanks, Ken.
I will put up links there and everyone can go to that. Thank you so much. That's Abby. As I said, she's great. Up Early Tonight is her show, which you should watch on Hulu, wherever Hulu is sold, which is everywhere because it's a streaming service. Because we live in the future, everybody. This is the future we deserve. Speaking of the future, if you have guests you would like me to try to get on the show, and I assure you, every single suggestion you send me, I try to get them on the show to varying degrees of success. You can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com, or alternatively, you can hit me up on social media at TV Guidance or at Kenneth W. Reid, REID, on all the things. Also our Patreon, patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. Thank you so much to all the new patrons. That this month was the biggest month we ever had, so I appreciate it so much. It helps me do this show and bring it to you every week. We're on year 8 without missing a week, which is insane. We hit 450 numerically a couple weeks ago, but I think this is episode 492 or something like that, which is completely insane, and no intention of stopping. It's been a year of remote, and that'll be how we do it for the foreseeable future, but hey, it's still getting done. So that's good. Anyway, I hope you're well. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you're watching. You know how to get in touch with me. And we'll see you again next week for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
I keep spoiling all the fun of the 80s with my 2021 lens.